First, it's important to be aware that some verbs are followed by a preposition. For example, she spoke about her sister. We've got the preposition about after the verb, or he dreamt of the house with a preposition of. Now, in French, these prepositions will usually be translated by the preposition de. That means about, of, etc. It can mean all sorts of things. Must remember that this little preposition, when followed with the definite article, might change. So de le becomes du, de la stays the same, de les becomes des, and de l'apostrophe becomes or stays the same. Now in French, we will have elle a parlé de sa sœur. He dreamt of the house will become il a rêvé de cette maison. Here's a list of useful verbs followed by the preposition de, regardless of their translation in English. So we have avoir besoin de, avoir envie de, avoir honte de, dépendre de, douter de, être fier de, parler de, se moquer de, se souvenir de, rêver de, manquer de, s'occuper de, prendre soin de. Now for some examples, j'ai besoin de sucre, I need sugar. Il parle de son travail, he speaks about his job. Je m'occupe de ce projet, I'm looking after this project. So you can see that the translation of de can be different, and sometimes it's not at all translated because it's not present in English. Just a reminder that a pronoun replaces a word, so a relative pronoun will do that, but it will also act as a linking word. So if we take those two sentences, this is the book, she spoke about the book. What we want to replace in the second sentence is the book. But we notice that we've got a preposition before it, so instead of being just the object, we're going to call it an indirect object because the preposition interrupts the direct route between the verb and the object, so it's not a direct route. But similarly, to use a pronoun, we're going to get rid of it and put the pronoun about which, and to link the two sentences, we're going to put it in between. Another example, he buys the house, he dreams of the house, we've got the preposition of. We're going to replace the indirect object of the house, and of course put the pronoun between the two sentences, he buys the house of which he dreamt. We do exactly the same in French. So we have a sentence in English translated in French. So what we're going to do is first identify the indirect object. We've got about the book, or du livre in French. What we need to do is to get rid of the indirect object and put a pronoun between the two sentences to link them up. So we're going to have about which, and in French we are going to have this relative pronoun dont that will replace the indirect object. Dont has various meanings. It can mean whose, from whom, of which, from which, and more. So I'll show you some examples. C'est la fille, le père de la fille est avocat. C'est la fille dont le père est avocat. This is the girl whose dad is a lawyer. Other example, j'ai des amis, deux de mes amis sont avocats. I have two friends, two of my friends are lawyers. J'ai des amis dont deux sont avocats. I have two friends, two of whom are lawyers. Last example, c'est l'oncle, j'ai hérité de l'oncle. It's the uncle, I inherited from the uncle. C'est l'oncle dont j'ai hérité. Here is the uncle from whom I inherited. One last little thing. It's very important to remember that in French, the relative pronoun cannot be left out. You have to include it. So in English, you can say the book I told you about, but in French, we must have dont and say le livre dont je t'ai parlé. Now let's practice. You will need to link up the two sentences using the relative pronoun dont. You have the translation in English in blue. So if we are going to link up these two sentences, we need to get rid of the indirect object and put dont between the two sentences. J'ai un fils dont je suis fier. I have a son of whom I'm proud. Il a l'argent, il a besoin de l'argent. Il a l'argent dont il a besoin. He has the money he needs. J'ai une maison, je prends soin de ma maison. J'ai une maison dont je prends soin. I have a house of which I take care. Il a un chien, il s'occupe de son chien. Il a un chien dont il s'occupe. He has a dog after which he looks, or that he looks after. C'est un événement, je me souviens de l'événement. C'est un événement dont je me souviens. It's an event that or which I remember. I have used phonics in this lesson, so if you want to find out a bit more, you can watch this lesson and download the summary sheet from my website.